All right, so we're recording. Hello, everyone who's watching. This is number three in the
Three, I
vlog
think.
series. Four, three,
I think three.
either way. Very informal process over here where uh, Kelly and I'm Tracy, we like to have these conversations about different elements of being with animals, with veganism, ways our lives are different. Just different things experientially with this path of like being so integrated with the animals that we serve at the sanctuary and what we learn from them and how that changes us as human beings. So to start with, we'll do a little intro, each of us. I'm Tracy Hulick. I'm on the leadership team with Kelly and a bunch of other wonderful people. I've been working or affiliated with the sanctuary since September of 2020. And I found that about a year after going vegan, and it was the most awesome thing to feel like I had a place to belong and where I learned so much more and I found my people. And so it's something that's been really meaningful to me. So, Kelly, how about you?
And I'm Kelly Sheets. I'm also on the leadership team. And I actually don't know how many years I started. Maybe in like 2017, I'm gonna guess that I started volunteering. Not positive, but that year, once I started, that was when I went vegan. I'd been vegetarian before that. And I'm glad we're gonna be talking about this today because it's been easy since. It's so easy to be vegan, being around our animal friends all the time. And it is true. I've met really amazing people there. So it's been supportive in like, I mean, just having the animals as friends supports this journey because, you don't eat your friends. So when you see them all the time, yeah, it reinforces your choices and makes you proud of them and feel like I'm doing a good thing here. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great feeling.
Yeah.
And so the topic we're going to talk about today is like when veganism extends beyond food. Because when I first made the change, and I did it for really a health experiment to look at my blood work 3 months later and just kind of use my body like a science experiment. And that alone cemented, okay, I'm going to keep eating this way. And then it was in the subsequent months and years, and it still continues now, of realizing how many other consumer-based choices I make have an impact on animal welfare or, things that have animal products in them that you just wouldn't think about. And it's a really broad topic, and like, there's no right and wrong. It's like if you choose to adopt a vegan way of eating, I mean, there's so many other choices that can come from that. And it's like up to each person what they want to do or what's most meaningful. Maybe you're still going to wear leather boots because you believe that they're going to last longer and whatever else. These kind of things. Like we can make all these choices. So I thought it would be fun for us to talk about different consumer-based choices we've made over time in the spirit of animal welfare and trying to move towards products that are vegan and cruelty-free. So, Kelly,
Yeah.
did you have something that you wanted to start with that? Because there's a surprising amount of areas that this
Yeah.
touches. They still discover more even now, 5 years later.
And I would also say it's a good way to reverse engineer your way in because there's a lot of resistance to veganism. And, it's like a fear of the change of becoming vegan and what that will mean in so many ways. But you can kind of reverse engineer your way into these choices. Like to me, veganism is that I made the personal choice to cause the least harm to the world, to others, to myself. And so that is how I started walking my way into this. So you could even there's so many choices you can make. And then ultimately your diet is part of that decision. So it could be the opposite way as well. So even if you're not vegan, you can be looking at this conversation saying, well, how can I actually make a difference in animals? And what I found is animals and humans' lives are connected, right? So all of the animals that are farmed for these products have outcomes that affect humans on emotional, psychological, physical health levels. So it's really, they're all connected. And that's what I think is really fascinating about this. It's not just like those crazy ass vegans that are going to give up eating animals. It's like, I, they're the outcomes that affect everything around those choices. They're very powerful choices, all these little ones that add up into something bigger. So,
Mhm.
yeah. I don't know. For me, it became when I started looking at choices, I had already been an environmentalist, right? So I had been looking at, but I wasn't a vegan at the time. I didn't even really, and still to this day, unfortunately, people aren't really talking enough about how animal agriculture is one of the greatest detriments to our environment. So no one really talked about that. So I hadn't really equated that with my environmental activism yet. So that has come over time. But looking at, so if I'm going to purchase products, there was two things. There was what's the environmental impact and what's the impact on the animals as well. And what's the impact on the environment being all the people as well and that environmental impact. So I started looking at products like that. Like I would buy things, and I still do, mostly buy my clothing at a thrift store. So some of that clothing may have animal product in it. If it is used, it's going to be discarded. I start to like look at that process of how am I going to buy this? I will can almost say never unless I make a mistake and get zoned out for a moment. I might buy something that has been tested on an animal or has animal products, and then I'm like, what have I done? One product, what have I done? But generally, like I might go to the thrift store and buy something because that makes less impact everywhere. That poor animal that suffered for this, I'm gonna keep this and use it till that thing is worn out. I will not buy a new thing. So it's like these, I think some of these decisions, they're just not that easy. It's not like you just, let's just throw out all of our stuff and buy a ton of new stuff that's vegan. So this is like, it's not just a simple black and white decision for me. It's very like, I'm thinking about my decisions, how they impact multiple directions, which
Mhm.
sounds exhausting if you think about it, but it's not really. Because in the beginning, you might think, but then the next time you don't have to think about it. You already know. You think about it, and then you make a new choice, and now that's your choice. You start making choices that you already know, and then you
Mhm.
say to your friends, well, what do you use, and then you start, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, like I think that's an important point to bring up of like the nuances of these decisions, like because these aren't decisions made in a vacuum, and to treat it kind of like an exploration, really, because early on I came in hot to veganism. I'm one of those folks who I just decided on a dime and I stuck. Like I didn't need to do a phased approach or whatever. Just I
Me
can be
neither.
all in to stay there. I just like that. And I also had a really perfectionist tendency early on, where if I were to like slip, because I remember like, one time with food, I did this early on where I had a cold and I went to the store and I wanted food that was going to be comforting to me. And so I got all this vegan stuff, except I bought chicken noodle soup. And it wasn't until I got home and put it on the shelf and I was like, oh no, I totally didn't even think this is just what I always get when I'm
Yeah.
sick. And I was like really irritated with myself for a while. And so
Yeah.
I feel like that probably made it a lot harder on myself that early on I had this spirit of
Right.
like getting it right, I'm doing all the things right,
Yeah.
and that's not really when you're playing the long game with this stuff, because this is like a lived experience of
Right.
thinking this
It's like
way
a
and like
lifestyle you're creating.
it
Yeah.
is.
Long
And it
term.
requires some thought and reflection and hopefully of people that you can talk to and like get ideas from. I mean, there's amazing online communities too, but it's a totally
Yeah.
different way of thinking about the way you vote with your dollar every time you spend money.
Yes. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think like that's something that's happened to me quite a lot in these, I think it's been about 7 years. It's happened a lot where, like, for instance, I loved Tootsie Rolls. So there was some psychological thing where I did not equate the Tootsie Rolls had milk in them for a long time. And it was ridiculous because I was so conscientious. Like I would look at labels and look at labels and just say, oh, this is a perfect example, right? When you walk into Trader Joe's, you can, there are, say, 8 pasta sauces, right? So I choose organic because one, that's better for the environment, it's better for the farmer. Like a whole million reasons you should choose that. It's better for the body. So first I'm like, what are the organic choices? And then I will look at those first. And then I say, which one does not have animal products in it? And this is where you start to realize that it's like there's some marriage between the dairy industry and every freaking product on the shelf, because it's like there's all this great thing. And then the last one is like they just sprinkle some milk powder in there just to support the dairy industry or something. So, but that's one of my decisions is like, in the beginning, I started looking, okay, what's the one that doesn't have any animal products in? You might find there's a couple and then you try a couple. But that place of just looking is one of those actions, like, okay, I'm just going to look. Well, for some reason there were things I didn't look. I don't know why. I just like made some, it's such a stupid assumption. They look like they have dairy in them. But I guess I wasn't ready to give them up until the day I realized that nope, no more of those. And that's happened a couple times where I realized I have had products in my house that were that had animal products in them. And then I just realized, and I was like, oh, no, no more of that. And I would have like a little ceremony, a little like, okay, this is like a memorial to my no more Tootsie Rolls. I'm giving it up. But that, like, that one example is to me something that was not hard, to just look at my labels and say, what doesn't have milk or eggs in it, what doesn't have any side meat product or some sort of meat broth. Boom, let me try those products first. It was such an easy thing. And then you walk out of the store and now you have whatever 20 products in your basket that not one of them has any impact on an animal in some feedlot or some chicken stuffed in a tiny little square somewhere that's suffering. Like,
Right.
how good is it, like that is that simple. So for me, that was the one of the first things I did, was like, we're going to look at labels and just put
Mhm.
it back and you buy another one, you know.
And another part of that that I think isn't talked about enough is you get to try a whole bunch of new stuff. In whatever realm we're going to be talking about other non-food related
Yeah.
things too. But like, I mean, how often, you get to a place in, midlife or whatever, and you've been buying the same Tootsie Rolls your whole life, the same brand of canned soup all the time, the same, hamburger helper box all the time. And there's so much out there. I mean, the variety
Oh
of
yeah.
food that I eat now, and like even like looking in my like cabinets in my bathroom and stuff like that. I mean, it's totally different than
Yeah.
it used to be. And I love that because it's fun because I'm finding all this new stuff that I like even better because I
Right.
feel good about using it because I instilled no harm in the process of buying that thing. And I get
Yeah.
to try something new that I actually like better.
Right.
So I love that.
Well, that's two things. One is that I just wrote about this in our newsletter, was the act of self-appreciation. When you are making these choices, I think it's we have learned to put our personal pleasure above anyone else's, almost, unless you're in my family, anyone else's life. I'm putting my pleasure above that. I want more stuff. I don't care about those people. Like, we get very insular, like where our decision, what we want, is the most important thing in the world. So this act of service where I'm putting other beings, other humans in the industry who aren't slaughtering these animals, that aren't standing in chemicals, these humans that aren't suffering for this, and then the animals that aren't suffering. So each time I get to say, let me feel some appreciation for the choice that I'm not putting my pleasure above someone else's situation. Like that this is secondary. I can live without the pleasure. I'll find a new pleasure, which is this tasty other thing or this lovely lotion. So
Mhm.
that was the first thing I was going to say, is I think self-appreciation is played in big time to this. I have numerous times a day when I can appreciate my choice, when it would have been easier to choose that thing that had something in it, like, oh, that chocolate thing that I love. I don't, or that cheap cosmetic moment of pleasure. But then, if you look at the container in the cosmetic aisle, yep, animal tested, off the list. Like, I immediately, that is my number one thing. I look first. Is this company doing animal testing? No. Okay, now we can look at the product. And
Mhm.
then, is it vegan? Was any animal harmed in this product? Is there milk in my face cream? Like, do I need milk in my face cream? No, I don't. Like, then I go to that. So it's also that, and I've had to look at different brands in my face cream, my shampoo, my conditioner, my toothpaste. Um, a
I
lot of these
haven't
things.
looked at toothpaste yet. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, see,
Wow.
it's like it's just ever growing where you start to realize, and if you let it get to you, then you're like, oh my God, another thing I have to do right because I learned something. But it's like, no, what an opportunity to create more goodness, to
Mhm.
like do something good. How easy is it? Like, to choose a new lotion or toothpaste.
Right. So what are some of the brands? Because something I want to make sure we're doing in here, because if someone new to this is watching this and they're all inspired, like we can save them some research of going out and having to look up all this different stuff. Because like any brand also that we mention or any specifics, I'll keep track of and I'll put in the description with links
Mm-hmm.
for when we post this video. But what are some of the brands that you have become your go-to in the bathroom?
In the bathroom. Okay, so one, I was using Tom's toothpaste. Let's talk about toothpaste. But then I actually now have been using David's, because they actually have something that's not fluoride. I think it's called like um hypoxyapatite, which is it's really good for your teeth, but it's not fluoride based. So really awesome.
Okay.
So David's is the brand I'm actually using for my toothpaste. But that's one of the ones that when I did some more research, there are a lot more vegan. Like a lot of these companies now say vegan right on the toothpaste. So you when you're looking for your toothpaste, you'll know like it will
Hmm.
say not animal tested and vegan because they
Oh,
know the market now. Yeah. So those are the two toothpastes. Lotion, Earth's Cure is there's a vegan collagen lotion. I really love that. I've been using that one consistently for maybe 3 years now. I use Trader Joe's just moisturizer. Trader Joe's is a really good place to look for non-animal tested. I don't actually know if they even carry animal tested products in
oh
their
wow.
skincare area. Yeah, I don't think that they do, but you want to look and see if they're vegan or not. That's one of the things, like you never know if they're vegan. And then Pacifico, wait, no,
Just-
Alba. Specifica, I've used their stuff. That's a good company. But Alba Organics, I have their lotions and their body oil. And I've been using those lately. So I don't use a lot of stuff. I don't really have any makeup, so I can't tell you about that.
Yeah, those are great. We have some in common. Like that elbow lotion, because I also have super sensitive skin, and I have found that to be the absolute best. So we get those big bottles of the
Yeah.
unscented stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I love that. Pacifica for like shampoo and conditioner and lotions and makeup. That was
Yeah.
the first brand I moved over to when I discovered all the animal crap that goes into makeup
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
skincare because I wanted to pick a brand that it didn't cost very much, so it wasn't like a bunch of money I was spending. And where I knew everything that they made was vegan and cruelty free because I didn't want to have to
Yeah.
pick things and read
Love
every
those
label.
companies.
I like that brand as like an intro. So like, I told you I had my props ready. So like that, if you
Oh,
can see like the logo,
okay.
and that's like they sell that at Ulta, they sell that at Target, like that's in a lot of really mainstream places. Um, since you didn't have any makeup recommendations, like the cheap one to also like get in for like dirt cheap for good products is like the Elf brand. They've got a ton of
Oh,
stuff. They keep it intentionally really inexpensive because they want to be this like gateway makeup company to like come on over where everything's vegan and cruelty free. Like this is a mascara that's $8. I
yeah.
mean,
Elf
their
is
stuff
not
is
expensive. Yeah.
no, not at all. And like they sell this at like Target, Ulta, Walgreens,
Mhm.
all these kinds of places. And then for hair stuff, I like the IGK brand. And so
Oh, I
these have
haven't
like
used
the
it.
little logos on the back for vegan and cruelty free. I think we should
Right.
mention like why there's the two labels because I
Hmm.
understand that at first, where I thought if something was vegan, it's like good for animals all the way around because there's no animal stuff in it. But you can have a vegan certified product, but they still test on animals. And it's just because
Yes.
animal's not in the product that it can be
Yes.
labeled vegan. So that's why you want both. And I did want to say that PETA has a really good site that they maintain. It's called Beauty Without Bunnies. Like
Yes.
that's my go-to if I want to maybe look for something new and I want to go to a reputable place talking about if these things are vegan or cruelty free. Because I've learned like to not trust Reddit threads, don't trust stuff where people are
Hmm.
just talking to each other, where I want like a source of true
Yeah.
information. So PETA hosts
Yeah.
that. It's really
I
helpful.
agree. And I think that's one of the things is that so many of these older companies, they buy other companies, but these companies do animal testing. And one of the problems with animal testing is that, and this is for medical testing as well, it's like, first of all, we are not animals. So this is part of the problem is that we are not animals. We are animals. Actually, we are animals, but we are not a bunny and we are not a beagle. And we are so testing things on these other forms of animals, these other species, is not a direct correlation to us, right? It's just like we can't give our dog the same stuff that we use medically to kill them. So this idea of animal testing is outdated. There's so much new technology, but these conservative older companies are just like, so what? We've done it forever. We'll keep doing it. So even PETA, one of our volunteers, I don't know if you know this, one of our volunteers worked for PETA. She doesn't volunteer anymore. Her name was April, and she was amazing. And she did all the research to be able, basically, she was an engineer. So she was coming up with testing that was non-animal based, that was better than animal testing, and trying to convince these conservative companies, like, you got to get on board. This isn't right. And so I think it's important to think about why we don't want to do animal testing. It's not necessary. We've been doing testing, alternative testing, for a long time now, and it's proven effective. We don't need to do it. So it's just straight cruelty. It's very cruel. So I think, even again, if you're not vegan, just like, the choice to not buy something that's tested on animals is a really lovely choice. It's good karma
Mhm.
for you too.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something else to
Yeah,
mention before we switch to a different part of the household for buying vegan products is just to mention some of the animal aspects of animals that are actually in a lot of this bathroom stuff. So like
yeah.
lanolin is one, like it can be actually kind of hard to find like chapsticks and stuff like that without lanolin, and that's like the fat from sheep wool. Um,
Can I tell you that we just did the sheep hooves? We just trimmed the sheep hooves 2 days ago.
yeah.
And right at the, let me just tell you, on a sheep, right where their hoof is, there's this little node right here where I was able to actually squeeze it, and a whole bunch of pure lanolin was coming out, because I was like, what is that? And Pierce, the shearing guy, was like, that's its lanolin gland. And they have them. The purpose of lanolin is to, it comes out and it moisturizes their hooves. And then it
Oh,
moisturizes their skin, and it creates a cooling system underneath their wool. Like, there's a purpose for it for a sheep.
I didn't know
So,
that.
but it's very cruel to raise sheep to take their lanolin. Not very
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
So that's in a lot of bathroom products, like gelatin and collagen are in a lot of bathroom products. And the one that really blew my mind, like those ones are like, I mean, it's all like kind of like horrifying when you think about it. But I didn't realize that for a lot of the makeup that has like the shimmer effect of it are fish scales. They're ground up fish scales that you're putting on your face.
I didn't know that. That's gross.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that wild?
So the other interesting thing is, like, when you're thinking about, people will say, why wouldn't I just use wool? Isn't, like, wool, like, they aren't, don't you need to shear them anyway? It's like, so these kind of questions require some investigation, because this is what you come up against when you're thinking about this. Like, well, why wouldn't I? But, like, for instance, my vitamin D, if we step over to vitamins, when
Mhm.
I was told to take vitamin D, which I don't take that much anymore because I realized I didn't need as much, as the studies were showing that were funded by the vitamin D companies. Um, Vitamin D is mostly not vegan. It's taken from sheep that are kept in dark, dank sheds. And then they're pulling, I think they're getting it out of their lanolin or their skin or something. There's an animal-based product is vitamin D. So you need to look, is this a vegan vitamin D product? Are my vitamins vegan? What animal parts are being taken? Like, the thought of taking fish oil, like, years ago, I would have used fish oil. Now I'm like, I want to throw up at the thought that that disgusting oil has been, there you go. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, like, the fish oil has been sitting in a capsule on a shelf somewhere. Blah. Like, it's, but I never thought about it because I read that it was good for me and I kept taking it. So it's like, yeah.
Hmm.
So anyway, thinking about the secondary, like, well, okay, not just a blanket, I'm gonna buy vegan and not animal tested, but let me just think about why, so that I'm conscious of what I'm doing here. Where does this come from?
Right. And what's nice, like now that we're kind of moving into supplements and, medications and stuff like that, is companies are getting so good at labeling things like that. Like I grabbed this one. So this Now brand, they sell that brand at natural grocers and
Yeah.
vitamin cottons. They put right on there, it says vegetarian/vegan. Because on a lot of these, like when they're capsules, it will say vegetarian, and you're like, well, how the heck is this vegetarian and not vegan? But there's gelatin in the
In the
capsules.
capsule.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tend to stick with brands that have it like right out there like that, where all of the products that they have are vegan. Because again, it just makes it easy for me. So I tend to do that. Or I moved over to tinctures even with a lot
Yeah.
of things because that's a good, I consider that a more natural way of getting in certain
Right.
supplements if it comes in that form.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this one I put up a little bit ago too, like just to like bold
Yeah.
letters vegan omega-3 DHA. Like they make it
Yeah.
easy for you to know what it is you're
Yeah.
getting.
And I do think it's like, the supplements are a good place to look, because if we're taking supplements, we're getting so much information about what supplements we're supposed to be taking from the 20 magazines and all the Google Docs and blah, blah, blah. We're being told all this stuff. But if you just stop for a minute and you use the opportunity to say, hey, well, I want something that's vegan, that will generally set you on a course of awareness because you're going to look for what's vegan. And through that looking, you start to notice things and make comparisons. Like you start looking at things that maybe you wouldn't have looked at previously, where you're just like, oh, there's some gummy vitamins, let me pick them up. And so
Mhm.
it's like you start to think about the quality of the supplement you're using, the quality of the face lotions I'm using. It starts to like make a difference. You just your choices get better just because you're having an awareness, I think.
Yeah.
So
And if you're looking at those kind of ingredients labels, say like on a face lotion for the first time, you also can't help but get aware about some of those have a real long list of a whole bunch of things that you don't know what they
I don't know
are.
what they are.
And so I've gone the way too of like cleaner, simpler
Yeah.
products where I can, at least say what most of the things are, if not all of the things. Like Mad Hippie is another great one, and they're based in Oregon. Like they have really
Oh,
clean, like very few ingredients in there. They're on sale a lot at places like Natural Grocers. I love their stuff. It's especially their face oils and stuff like that are really, really good. But you just get more aware of like what kind of garbage am I spreading all over myself or putting in my body by
right,
looking at labels if you've never really looked at labels before.
right, right. And then that's also because when you like, I think some people equate vegan, like starting to think vegan and organic are like these elitist kind of possibilities. Everything's more expensive. But something I used to tell my mother when my mother died a few years ago, but when she was alive, she'd be like, God, you spend so much money on your vegetables, on your organic vegetables. And I would just tell her, I'm going to spend the money now on my body. So I'm not spending the money later on my healthcare. And it's a different mindset. It's like, yeah, I might spend an extra dollar on this one product that I could get for a dollar less over there that's not as good, but I know it's clean. So I'm not putting stuff in my body that shouldn't be in my body. So it's like it is sometimes these products, you can go to the dollar store and get lotion, so you can get cheap stuff everywhere. It's just making the choice of like, where do you want to spend on the long term or the short term? Like, so I think it's a good reminder too, because sometimes I'll be like, oh God, why does this one have to be more? And then I'll do it because I know it's a better choice for everyone involved. It's me, the environment, the animal, the farmer. It's a good investment of my extra $1.25 on that product. So I have to sometimes walk myself into that. Yeah, this is a better choice, Kelly, and you can appreciate yourself for making it. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, yeah.
Or if you hear my dog like snoring over there, he's in the middle of a dog dream right now.
I can hear him easily.
Doing like these little like sleepy, like quiet barks under his breath. He's dreaming right now. But what are some
Yeah.
other areas where you
Cleaning,
make? Oh
cleaning
yeah.
products.
Mm-hmm.
So what's interesting to me is this is again an animal crossover with the chemicals and the environment and all that stuff. But I have totally diminished the chemicals. Like we don't really have many cleaning chemicals in our house at all. And so that was something that, we like to clean our houses with things and then it smells really good. But you can have smells other way in your house. Like you can use essential oils if you want or whatever. So I end up using, like, I've bought cloths that are, you just use them for years and years. You don't need to use a lot of chemicals or cleaning. You can use vinegar and water, and you just start to reevaluate your impact, I think, through vegan. And since I don't buy products, I don't really know what's in them anymore, but I can guarantee most of them come from like Johnson and Johnson or these big companies that are doing mass animal testing. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like that's something that's interesting too, is like you said. So you might, who is it? There was one company that I saw. I was looking for vegan shampoos, a new vegan shampoo. I was looking for something that would give a thickener to my hair. And so then Aveeno, that's what it was. So Aveeno, vegan, whatever it comes up. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. So I immediately went into my vegan mode. And then I was like, wait a minute. It's the only vegan product they have. And everything else they sell is animal tested. And this one isn't animal tested, but they tested and they continue to, so that they know that that product is viable. So it's like a greenwashing kind of thing. Like Yeah, that one product, but the whole company is supporting these other tests. So I think with buying cleaning products and any products for a household, that's a good place to look. 'Cause you're like, who's making this?
Hmm.
Where voting with your dollar, like you said. Like I'm
Right.
going to be really conscious of where I buy so that I know that my money isn't paying to torture some animal, and that's important to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and with the cleaning products too, we're similar with that. Like I make most of my own cleaning products at home because
yeah,
I really went down this rabbit hole a handful of years ago, looking at both ones that are tested on animals as well as like all these ridiculous chemicals and how they're full of endocrine disruptors and everything like that. It's just horrible to have in your
yeah,
house. And I was really thinking about like what cleaning products I use on the floor because I had a cat and a dog and they're on the floor all the time. So I'm like, well, what am I
right,
like having them inhale? So I started looking up recipes that are super easy with combinations of like vinegar, baking soda, sometimes hydrogen peroxide for certain
right.
things. But I did because I came so prepared. I brought this to share because I also
Dr.
use
Brown.
this. I stopped using any kind
Oh,
of regular clothing detergent. So I use this as like 1 cup of this to 4 cups of water, and I just have it in a carafe downstairs. So if you want to move to a cleaner. See what I did there? Like cleaning product. It's like really easy. You don't have to really mix stuff. Like this has all sorts of different combinations. I use that to wash my car inside and out. I use it on floors. I use it on laundry. I use it in spray bottles for the counter. And it does have a subtle, natural, like kind of pine smell to it.
right,
So if you just don't want to think too hard about changing out your cleaning
right.
products, and it's healthy, like this is the absolute best. I buy this like multi packs to have them because I use it for everything.
I had not seen that. You just gave me a new product. I love it.
Awesome. Have it at Natural Grocers. It's on sale pretty regularly. I really plug
Okay.
in Natural
No
Grocers.
kidding. Good stuff. Um, I was gonna say, you said cleaning. I forget now. Oh, can you put the link to that? Is it like Oily House or something? Where you gave me, I know that's not the name of it.
Oily House. That's the worst name. What is that?
Remember when you made me that laundry booster last year, I think, or 2 years ago?
Dude.
And it was on this site. I'll find it if you can't find it, but we should put that link in the notes because she has all those home products that you can make at home, and they're very simple. I love her simple recipes, and that's the best part about that. Is like it's not hard. It's not hard to make these things and know what's in them, and then know that you're not harming animals and not harming your own body. So
Right. Yeah. So that recipe, I got it out of a Willow and Sage magazine, but it featured like the person that you're talking about. It was like their website
right,
listing in the magazine. So I'll pull that out because I use that because I make my own dish soap every month
oh
and I
yeah,
just cannot retain the recipe. So I pull that same magazine out every month. So I'll pull that out and I'll put a link to it.
good.
Because
So
those
that's a
laundry
good one. A
detergents are
dish
so
soap.
good. Oh
So
yeah.
right now that's one of the so here's a perfect example of like uh my curiosities as I look at these decisions. One, I buy a dish soap that is, not animal tested, it's got no animal products, but then it comes in a plastic bottle. So
Mhm.
then this, like, I'm still using what's in this plastic bottle because I got a refillable thing. But I realized, oh, there's plenty of people that use bar soap, like a Castile bar soap to wash your dishes, and it doesn't leave behind extra residue on your dishes. And I was like, duh, I never made the crossover that you could just use a bar of Castile soap, and that's Dr. Bronner's Castile is perfect company to do that with. And so it's simple stuff like that. Now there won't be any more plastic coming in through that, and least harm, right? Least
Yeah.
waste.
Yeah, that's a good
So
option. And also, I'm seeing more and more that they're having, um, oh, what's the word? Where it's like, oh, what is the word? Like there's the pantry in Bend where you can go in and they have like a big glass container that has like a big thing of homemade dish soap and you bring in your own container
like
to fill.
refillables,
Yeah,
I
like
don't
there's
know
a
what those.
word for it. Dang it. But like there's that the grocery store that used to be called Food for Less. I think it's now called
Oh
Local Acres
yeah, local acres.
97. They have a
Yeah.
section actually, and I think there's Dr. Bronner soaps
Bulk.
over there in huge containers. You can fill up containers there.
Oh,
At the Sundance Natural Foods in Eugene, they have that for like shampoo, conditioner, lotion, dish soap, like all sorts of stuff, like
yeah.
bath salts, all sorts of things. So more places are doing things like that too, where say if you don't want the big plastic bottle, I'm sure this is sold in bulk somewhere where I could bring my
Right.
own container and refill it. So that's becoming more popular. I don't know why I
Right.
can't think of what that word is. Oh,
Bulk? Like, I don't know. Yeah.
no, it's like a special, it'll come to me. As soon as we
Okay.
stop recording, it'll come to me and I'll be like, don't put it in the note.
I know what you mean. I'm sure everybody else knows what you mean too, though.
Yeah.
The other area I think is clothing, like looking at the things we buy to adorn ourselves kind of is a good way to think about it. And thinking about, does that's been one of my challenges is I had wool socks that lasted forever and I wore them and I darned those socks because I'm not buying any more wool. And so one of the things like with wool, I just had someone ask me this again about this wool company that she was buying her clothing from. So I went and I looked them up. And do you know what it's called? I forget what it's called, but um, for some of you, you might not know this, but it's a common practice. So sheep they will actually take the layer of skin, they will skin them on the butt. Yes. And it is common. And so that scar tissue is there, they harm them. And then that actually causes, because I think there's some, I forget what it is, like bot fly or something that happens, which can be treated other ways, but is generally not. Generally, they cause these sheep harm um, because they treat them like a product. So there's like these practices that are in place with animals. Like, yeah, you didn't kill the sheep to get the wool, but you actually caused it a lot of harm and suffering. And so, and they will kill, the lambs. Hello, lamb is lambs, baby sheep.
Mhm.
So, you got to keep having babies and you got to keep like, it's just wild, the whole system. But when you think about wool, there are there are consequences. So it's like, how do we find replacements for those things? And I'm not going to say like, there's not a vegan answer for everything that's an equal value. Like you can't just go find the same sock that's going to be the same as wool often. It's hard. You need to look. So I have found a couple things, but I can't remember the name, but none of them have been excellent choices yet. Do you have any things like that? Like for me, I end up using fleece is often like fleece clothing tends to be warm, like Patagonia fleece is what I'll use. So what are some of the things like you found?
Yeah, well, for those like real warm layers, I like the combination where it's like fleece on the inside and a really heavy knit sweater material on the outside. I found
Mm-hmm.
that combination works really well. Like I climbed Kilimanjaro a couple years ago, and I made it a point that everything I climbed that mountain with was vegan, even knowing it was going to be real cold some of those nights. So, I had a really nice Patagonia like fleece on the inside, sweater on the outside was expensive. Best layer that I bought. And then North Face has, I think, really good synthetic options that are warm enough, especially if you layer them
Yeah.
appropriately. So I just had a hooded North Face puffy that I just used it this morning. It's great. And then a Patagonia waterproof outer layer. So I find that not doing down, not doing wool, I do layer more pieces, but it works
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel like I'm missing out or something. But I did have
Yes.
old wool socks that I still had. I did use those on the mountain because I had them already versus buying new.
Right.
So I did
Right.
make that.
Yeah. That's another one is down, is that down is terrible industry. But nowadays there's so many options that are synthetic. And again, it is this environmental question of like, buying one versus the other. But I find that the question is not really a question if you're not buying things you don't need. Like the question is if we're like mass consumers that are buying new coats every season, then yeah, now you're buying synthetic plastic coat and synthetic filling, and you're going to throw that in the landfill every year. Yeah, you're a part of the problem. But if you
Hmm.
just buy something and you buy something that you're going to stick with, it doesn't, you're going to have that coat a long time. It's not a
Right.
big deal. It's like you just ultimately you'll probably be recycled somewhere if you're thoughtful about it. But
Yeah.
to me, the synthetic down has proven to be just as effective as regular down. So it's just
Yeah.
getting the right jacket for the situation you're going into. Like,
Exactly. And I rely a lot on reviews for stuff like that. Like the synthetic sleeping bag I bought for Kilimanjaro. It was a 0-degree bag. I tried it out in my backyard in January in Bend in a tent. I slept out there to try it out. It worked great. It
Yeah.
worked so great. I was like, I know I never want to camp in this cold again. So I left it there and donated it to like their porters. Um, but I have found that was now doing this kind of research about these purchases. Like I've never really been one to like, I'll just go to the mall and buy 5 pairs of shoes I'm gonna wear two
Yeah.
times because they're all crappy or whatever. Like I don't want to have a lot of stuff I'm carting around. So I put a lot of thought into what I'm buying and I research and I have two things I'll share here in a second, but like especially when it comes to shoes or jackets, like I really want those to last a very long time. So I put a
Yeah.
lot of thought into it and I'm willing to spend a little bit of money if I'm going to be buying something brand new because I'm thinking about the long game with all these decisions.
Yeah.
So hiking boots are one. I wore out my first pair that I bought for the Kilimanjaro trip. Subsequently hiked in Guatemala with those two. I put like 500 miles on these hiking boots and they are vegan. And I think La Sportiva is actually stopping carrying these. So I got these for like half off really recently.
Oh,
They're the best. There's no leather on these. They're the best hiking shoes I've ever had, ever.
yeah.
Um, so I mean, those I wore the heck out of those other ones. So it was nice to find
Yeah.
a replacement because there's not a lot of options for great
Mhm.
vegan hiking shoes. I guess
Mhm.
people watching this, if you know of some that I don't know, it's like that would be a great comment to leave.
Yeah,
Um,
please leave any comments of suggestions because we've tried, and I like when people like I actually would like some suggestions for more shampoo options because that's one of the ones I've had trouble just because I don't like buying a ton of them. Like I bought a new one, Love Beauty and Planet or something at Target has lots of vegan options. It wasn't expensive. It said it was a hair thickener, but my hair ends up being silky and flat. So if you've got curly frizzy hair, you should probably use that stuff. But not me. So now I've got this product that I don't really want to use, but it's like I need to get some other referrals so that I can look for some different vegan shampoo so I can try some different ones. So please, if anyone has any comments, please tell us that.
That'd be a
Yeah.
great one.
Yeah,
Um,
like no down pillows. Like when I had to go buy pillows again, I searched online and dang it, I wish I had the name of them. But I ended up finding I looked at reviews. Again, I looked at all the reviews and then I was able to find a good review of vegan pillows and there's lots of full range. You can get them super synthetic or you can get nice like a down replacement. So you just need to do your research and look.
Mhm.
I do think one of the things about leather, like for instance, I have this necklace. This is not leather, it's string. But things like buying jewelry that has leather in it, where did that leather, people think that leather is a byproduct of the meat industry. And that is not true. It is sometimes true, and it is often not true. The animal's killed for the leather. So people, like, if you just start noticing all the randomness, like I have bags, backpacks, I hats. I'll be like, oh, that's such a sweet hat. And then they use a leather tag. I'm like, nope,
I
not buying that.
know.
Someone's going to
Hmm.
ruin it by a leather tag. So
Yeah.
it's noticing these little ways because if I buy it and you buy it and hundreds of people buy that hat with the leather tag that's so cute, they're gonna make more hats with leather tags because they think it's a product people want. So this
Mhm.
is where it matters. Like you just say, no, I'm not gonna buy it because it's got a leather tag, and then maybe they'll make another choice. It's
Mhm.
important. Like, but leather is one that you need to look for because it's not just buying like shoes were a problem for me in the beginning. I would go get running shoes and realize, dang it, like there's a leather strip on the front. So realizing, looking ahead and thinking, where is that? What
Mhm.
tags are on my clothes? What do I need to buy a leather purse for real? Like, is it even what? There's plenty of other options. Like, there's cool options that aren't leather. So part of it is just our deprogramming from habituated buying. Like,
Yeah.
this is what we buy, you know,
Hmm.
to think out of our box, I think is important.
Yeah. And I do notice there's a lot of companies that are creating vegan lines. So like they're still doing their animal product stuff, but they're making more robust vegan options for people because clearly there's an increasing demand. And so I'm going to plug my favorite vegan thing I have bought that is a clothing item because
I
so
know
it's
what it is.
so Doc Martens.
I knew it.
I'm not a nostalgic person. I'm not a sentimental person, but there was something about that original pair of brown leather Doc Marten boots I had that I got when I was like 17 years old, and I wore them forever. And in recent years, I'm like, gosh, it would just be so awesome to like have an adult pair like that, but oh, like, leather. Doc Martens is doing a great job of having a lot of vegan
Yeah.
options. And so I've had these for a year already, and they're so awesome. I love them just as much as the other ones. I also got a purse from their vegan line. And companies like that are doing that more and more. And
Yeah.
I, of course, like read a bunch of the reviews about those first because I knew they looked awesome, but I'm like, are they going to last though? But they've had these
Yeah.
around for a few years. The reviews
Yeah.
are fantastic. And I got him on sale. So win-win. So there are companies, and like Adidas is another one. I've had a fair amount of the vegan sneaker offerings that Adidas has. I don't love the
Mhm.
company in general, but at least they have vegan options for shoes. And I think
Right.
all of their Stan Smith line now is all vegan, which is great. So
Right.
the stuff is out there if you look for it.
Right. And I
Mhm.
think that is an important point, is that just like when you're choosing food, like you become vegan and people that aren't vegan are like, what am I going to eat? Right. And then you just open your mind and all of a sudden there's like all of these options, um,
Mhm.
things you didn't really maybe consider before, think of before, because that was like your side and you didn't put a lot of energy into it. It's the same as you start shopping. When you start searching vegan, or you walk in and you ask for, is this vegan? And it's just a good, even that itself, for all of us people who already are vegans, asking for the vegan option is important, because they hear it enough, they'll start. This is how consumerism works, is that it's not that you don't say anything, assume they don't have it. You ask for it, and then they begin to hear enough people, they will buy it. That's how materialistic capitalism works. Where
Yeah.
there's a demand, they will provide you the supplies. So
Mhm.
ask for it.
Yeah. And I do think it's also powerful to like send a thank you, not for like everything in the world, but like I sent an email to Doc Martens. I'm like, thank you so much for having so many vegan items. It's
Yeah.
nice to like get reacquainted with your product again after all these years and have it be in alignment with my values. Because
Yeah.
how often do bigger companies or even like small size companies get any compliments from their consumers?
Yeah.
Not. So I
Yeah.
feel like when you do that, it does make a difference to some degree.
Yeah. One of the things I also throw in here is that I just thought of this. One of my clients owns, this in Sisters, the quilt shop in Sisters, Stitch and Post. And, I go in there and they sell wool stuff. But then there's also, what I noticed recently is that they are selling synthetic wool, like sheets of wool for projects, and they're synthetic. And I'm starting to see more of that. So, there are these obscure markets that we just need to support and find. So it's like, not everyone, if people aren't thinking about it, they're not even looking for it. So maybe part of this is just to prompt us to look. You look for it and you will find it. It's going to be available. Things like, oh, like the other thing I just thought of is like deodorants. Though, like, I just thought of, I don't know why, because I was searching for one I wanted and looking for, again, it's another thing that I use. Dr. Teal's, I think it is called. They have a very simple coconut oil deodorant. Not only is it simple and good for my body, but there's no animal product, nothing of animals in there. And so it's like looking at these outside options. I had no idea they made deodorant, just was through searching. But
Hmm.
I think all, like, do you have any other specifics?
I have one other specific because it was my most recent one where it was one of those I had already like purchased some things and was like, oh no. And it has to do with
Yes.
art supplies.
Oh, yes.
And
Yeah.
so even, I have my little thing of brushes here, which I was really grateful because I was maybe like a year into like doing like some painting and some watercolor and some sketching and stuff like that. And you don't think about like pencils, and at least I didn't think about like
Hmm.
paint brushes or paints as having animal products in. Well, brushes, like there's a whole I would say like people generally buy synthetic now because there's so many great options available. But I was horrified when I looked and you can buy squirrel hair brushes. You can buy like sable brushes and stuff, and they're all
Oh,
expensive.
yes.
I'm like, oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And then paints, which, and usually this specific one
Yes.
is vegan, but it's like especially anything in that deep red color. And then there's certain shades of blue and some darker, like dark blue and dark browns that frequently are not vegan. And I
Yeah.
was It didn't even occur to me because I'm like having art time over here. I'm not thinking that some animal's suffering because I'm using red paint, but
Yeah. I
it's
remember
per
someone gave me, when I was oil painting, someone gave me casein paints.
no,
And
no.
so, milk, basically milk paints. And
Gross.
so, yeah, it's a thing. So it is like you begin, I think this is what the fascinating journey is like this awareness of this reliance on objectifying these animals so that we can just do these things and go about our business and never worry about it, and we don't even think about it. So it's just the thought of thinking about it. And then the secondary is I just want to go back and the appreciation that like I can feel about myself for making a choice that's either inconvenient because now I have to research it. So in our culture, we tend to write off inconvenience as like something bad, but all great things come out of inconvenience. Like inconvenience is you go for a run. Inconvenience is you make a new choice. Inconvenience is you go to the party when you don't want to, and then you meet your new partner. Like
Mhm.
so much is inconvenient that is the growth path. So thinking that we should just be always convenience is definitely 100% going to cause suffering for others. Always. McDonald's, great. Your burger costs $1, but you just participated in the worst machine of like not just animal exploitation, but often human exploitation too. So it's like that thought of like I can handle this. I can be inconvenienced to make a choice that is beneficial for others and myself, and I can appreciate that I'm going to be inconvenienced. I can do that. I'm strong enough to handle that, and that
Mhm.
feels nice. I feel proud of myself for doing it. And then when I make a mistake, because I don't need to be perfect, it's like when I buy the freaking Tootsie Roll and realize that it's not vegan for the 100th time. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, now no more of that. I have my little burial for the Tootsie Roll. I'm like, okay, this is the last one. Enjoy it. And then no more of that. And then I'm on to like, now I need to do a little research. What are the vegan candies? When you hand out Halloween candy this month, what candy are you going to give out? Like, there's
Right.
another one, right?
Hmm.
Like, why not just go find some vegan candy and give it to kids? Like,
Swedish fish. Who doesn't like
oh,
Swedish fish?
I love Swedish fish.
It's just so good.
Yeah. So it's like it's just making those choices, and then now you're pushing it out a little bit, like where you're not just participating in buying the cheap candy to give every kid that they don't really need, that they're going to rot their teeth out and feel crummy. It's like you give them vegan food that they're going to rot their teeth out and make them feel crummy.
Right. I love what you're talking about of like reframing inconvenience and what that really is, because I think it's great that we wrap up this conversation with kind of zooming back out to the macro of these choices and the meaning behind this. And I think so much about all of these choices that like we don't exist in a vacuum. Like it's increasingly easy to think that you are, especially if you like you work from home, you don't really leave your house, whatever else. It's like you forget all these threads that connect us to everything else. Because really, when we choose to buy stuff, knowingly buy things that contain animal products for tested on animals, that in a way that's saying that like in the hierarchy of life, like we're above them. Like they're here to serve us, they're here at my disposal, really.
Yeah.
And I think, at least for me, in the way that I'm showing up in my existence, that I'm committed to is that like I'm here to be in partnership with nature. I'm here to be in partnership with you, with my dog, with these animals I'm never going to meet. It's like I want to move through life harmoniously with all these beings of nature, and we are that too. I like, and there's no one that's better than the other. It's like
Yeah.
if we didn't have like possums in the world, a whole bunch of things would be screwed up. It's like we're all here for good reason, and it's in fluid partnership with each other, not because
Right.
all that stuff is here to serve me because I'm better. And so
Right.
these choices also help me enforce that and like my life philosophy of like why I'm here and what I'm doing. And so it feels good every time. And maybe I want a donut off the shelf at the grocery store, but I stop and think, I'm like, nah,
Right.
have some dark chocolate instead, and I'll be just
Right.
as safe, because it's
Yeah.
not about me. It was never about me.
Yeah. I do think we don't talk enough about the making the choices, like the ripple effect of making these choices, the grand, wonderful outcome of that. Like that we get something from making these choices and it feels good to make a good choice. And I think we could do a better job at connecting that in the vegan world. It's like
It's not just don't hurt the animals. Like it's not about that. It's also about us. It's our participation in doing something good that feels good about
Yeah.
ourselves, you know? So it's I get a lot back from that.
Yeah,
So,
me too.
well, hopefully you guys learned something today that you could think about or go investigate or use Google to search out some new options. And like I think the last thing I'll say is that you don't need to do this all at once. Like pick a place, pick the bathroom and start there, like we started on the bathroom, or pick the kitchen, or pick the cleaning supplies under the sink, you know, whatever it is, like pick some place, or just say, when I go to the store, I'm going to remind myself, you know, at the top of the shopping list, remind yourself, like, are these things animal tested? You know, are there animal products in there? And just start. Like, that's it. You don't need to do it perfectly. So you don't need to throw it all out if you can't do it. Just one thing at a time. You just begin and the momentum takes over. And then it's easy. It's not even a thing anymore. For both of us, we just look and that's it. And then onward to other things. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we're done, I'm gonna go look up different toothpaste because I had never considered my toothpaste. So I got my own little thing to go on here because it's just this never-ending kind of beautiful exploration of like adjusting the sales over and over and not chastising myself, but being excited. It's like, wow, I'm gonna try a new toothpaste
Yeah.
after the current one is done. That's cool.
Good. I love that.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for like
Yeah.
whoever's watching this. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope the comment section gets used with suggestions or even questions, stuff like that. I mean, I would like for this to be a little more interactive and because I mean, there's so much great stuff out there. There's no way for the two of us together to know all the amazing,
Yeah.
animal-free products that are out there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you
Cool.
guys. See
Thanks.
you again next time.
Okay.